for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-k.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon back with you on the Sick Podcast. Was off last week. Don't worry, I'm back tonight. And what a night it was for the Montreal Canadiens. Just an unbelievable game in Washington. 4 days off. The last time the Canadiens had a bunch of days off, it didn't go so well for them, but they responded well tonight. And joining me, I should say, to talk about this game, he is my usual Friday guest. We haven't spoken in a while. We certainly haven't spoken in 2025. He is Mr. Stu Cowan of the Montreal Gazette. Stu, what's going on?
I'm doing pretty well, not as well as Marty St. Louis and the Canadiens, but man, it's hard to believe this is the same team that we saw less than a month ago get blown out 9-2 by the Pittsburgh Penguins on home ice.
It'd be pretty hard to be better than how Martin St. Louis and the Canadiens are doing right now. It's really just unbelievable, and we were talking very, very briefly before the show. And I said to that point, I find it very funny when players say they don't listen to the noise, they tune it out, and, they don't listen to what's going on in the media. But you have to have a feeling that they do, because after a night like tonight, especially after that 9-2 loss, the pitchforks were starting to come out for the team, for Martin St. Louis, for certain players, and they responded really in a way that I don't think even the most optimistic of Habs fans could have thought.
Yeah, the only two Habs players I've ever believed don't listen to anything are Shea Weber and Mike Matheson. But even Mike Matheson told me, even though he doesn't pay attention to social media and whatnot, he hears it from friends and family, right? You can't avoid it in this market. And, that loss to Pittsburgh, that night I thought this season was going off the rails. It looked like players, they gave up in the third period. It looked like for the first time, they were starting to give up on Marty St. Louis. But I think it was a wake-up call, not just for the team, but for management. When you look at the moves that came after that, they gave up on Caden Primo and sent them down, put them on waivers and called up Jakob Dobas. They made the trade to bring in Alexandre Carrier, and they gave up on Justin Barron. I think management also realized at that point that this could go off the rails, and they had to do something. They had to do something to show the guys that, the Nick Suzukis and the Cole Caufields and those guys that, yes, we are trying to win this year. We do want to be in the mix. We weren't lying when we said that at the golf tournament at the start of the season. And just those two little moves, Carrier solidified the defense. Dobas has given them confidence, whether it's Montembeault or him in goal. But more than that, I think it was just the big picture that management said, okay, we got to do something. We can't let this go off the rails. And you look at the way they responded, it's really, really is remarkable. Defensively, this is a team that looked so lost in their own end. We were many nights on the podcast, we were criticizing this hybrid system, how it doesn't work, how it's not. They limited the Washington Capitals to 17 shots tonight. The Washington Capitals are a good hockey team. But over the last 6 games, shots against for the Canadiens, 23, 29, 26, 23, 20, 17. I don't think guys ever give up on Marty St. Louis. They always wanted to play with him. But I think they wanted to know that management was serious about trying to win this season. Guys don't want to lose. Pro hockey players don't want to lose. And the Nick Suzukis on this team were getting tired of it. And now they're on a roll. And now just everything seems to be working, right? Everything seems 4 games without David Savard and Patrick Laine. They're 3-1 in those 4 games. It's they I think they believe in each other. I think they've always believed in each other as a team. It's a good locker room. It's like a brotherhood, but now they believe they can win. And Nick Suzuki talking after practice yesterday, when you look at the standings and you're last in the Eastern Conference, it's hard to believe being in the mix is a possibility. After tonight, they're 1 point out of the second wildcard playoff spot. They have 43 points. Boston's first in the wildcard spot. They have 45 points. Columbus has 44. Pittsburgh has 44. The Habs have 43. The Habs have 3 games in hand in Boston. They have 1 game in hand on Columbus, and they have 2 games in hand on Pittsburgh. So they're more than in the mix. Like winning percentage-wise, this is a team that before the season, I thought even if they had Laine to start the season, they weren't good enough to be in the mix. I was thinking even yesterday, or the day before, after Kent Hughes' midseason news conference, okay, they can hang around the playoffs and maybe be close, but I don't think they're good enough to get in. Tonight's performance convinced me that this team might be good enough to make the playoffs. That was a really, really impressive performance. As you mentioned, a team that hadn't played since Monday. That was just offensively, defensively. I mean, Lane Hudson, does the kid ever get tired? Like he's up and down, or like it's tiring watching him. Like he never gets tired. It's unbelievable, and it's fun to watch. I've told you before. It's a fun team to be around. They're a good group of young guys, and it's fun to see them now really believing that they can win. And it's fun seeing all the faith that Martin St. Louis has put in these players, and the conviction that he and management had that they were on the right path. And kudos to them for realizing, as I mentioned before, that things might go off the rails and they had to do something, and they did something, and it worked.
Yeah. The biggest thing about the 4 days off is I remember, we were just dumbfounded when the Canadiens had a bunch of days off. I remember this is earlier in the season. They lose to the Rangers. They have a bunch of days off, and then they had the St. Louis Blues. And I remember coming on this podcast saying they got to win this game. They have to win this game, or at least put together such a dominant performance. If they don't come away with 2 points, they ended up winning the game. The next time they had a bunch of days off, they got absolutely blasted by Vegas. And, it's hard to believe on the surface that after so many days off, that you could just come out so flat like that. And frankly, to be honest, the Canadiens did come out a little flat to start the game. They did, but they found their footing pretty quickly. But after thinking about it for a while and hearing some parallels from other sports, talking about with the NFL playoff situation, not to bring in football so early, but a lot of teams a lot of analysts were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and saying, "Oh my God, are they really going to go 3 weeks without playing a game? Their starters this is crazy. They can't handle it." But they're a veteran team. You have guys that have done it before on that team, so you're not worried about them. The Canadiens are a very young team. They don't have guys that have done it before. They need to be in the swing of things. So I actually think, upon further reflection, that it's harder to come out and looking energized and being in game shape and ready to go off of having so many days off. So that to me was the most impressive thing, was how quickly, after falling behind to the Capitals, what did the Capitals score 4 or 5 minutes into the game?
Early power play goal. Yeah,
that's it. And they found their footing after that. They still got into some penalty trouble. At one point in the second period, I said, this team's really playing with fire right now, because this is the best team in the East, and they have Alex Ovechkin, and they keep giving up power plays. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this is going to be it for them. This is going to be the night for them, and they proved me wrong. Nick Suzuki does it again. He's turning out to be one of the most clutch players in recent memory for the Canadiens. He's addicted to scoring in overtime, and
he made some great defensive plays tonight too. You mentioned Alex Ovechkin. They eliminated Ovechkin to one shot on goal tonight.
Oh yeah.
One shot.
Carrier had a big hand. It was unbelievable.
I got to admit, when they acquired Alexandre Carrier, I was like, who? Like, who is this guy? I didn't really. And Nashville had been in Montreal not too long before that trade. I don't remember. I looked up. Okay, he played junior in Hull. He was a Kent Hughes client when he was a player agent. Okay, there's that connection there. But man, oh man, is he a good hockey player? And he has made Kaiden Guhle even better. Putting Guhle back on his natural left side, giving him a veteran, as Marty St. Louis told me a little while ago. He said he knows what Carrier is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only other veteran that Kaiden Guhle has played with since he's been in Montreal is David Savard. And he sort of knew what David Savard was going to do, but David Savard doesn't skate like Carrier. He doesn't move the puck like Carrier. He can't keep up with Guhle skating-wise and movement-wise. So he's got a guy that, first of all, he's on his natural side. Secondly, he's got a guy that he knows where he's going to be. He knows what he's going to do. And man, Carrier is just so quick on his feet. He attacks loose pucks, and he's strong for a guy his size. Like, what a trade that was for Justin Barron, a guy who was in and out of the lineup, wasn't healthy scratch more often than not. And then you bring in this Carrier, and he just solidified all the defensive pairs. He really did. Arbor Jacki was better playing with David Savard. Jaden Struble tonight, he took that penalty, then he got sort of benched. He finished the game. He had less than 6 minutes of ice time tonight. They went with 5 defensemen. But Carrier has just solidified the defense, and he's courageous. Like you see tonight when he lost the skate blade, and we're talking Ovechkin wound up for a one-timer, and he got in front of it to block it with one. Like, that takes a lot of guts, right? And they're winning, and nothing feels better than winning, especially to a team that hasn't won much over the last couple of seasons, and a young team that hasn't won much, and they're just feeding off everything right now. They're feeding. I mean, Yoel Armia is playing amazing hockey. Jake Evans has been one of their best players since the start of the season. Another great game tonight. Josh Anderson playing like he did when the Canadiens went to the Stanley Cup final in 2021. Slafkovsky, taking some heat. He's not scoring a lot of goals. He got 19 assists. He had a great pass tonight for Caulfield's goal. I mean, Caulfield's scoring like crazy, right? 5 straight games with a goal. Like, it's hard to find something that's wrong with the Canadiens right now. They have 4 lines that they're rolling. Their fourth line, arguably the best fourth line in the NHL right now. Mm-hmm. Their first line's producing. The line with Gallagher and Dvorak and Anderson is an overpaid line for what they're producing offensively, but an effective line when they put them on the ice. So Marty St. Louis can roll 4 forward lines. He can roll 3 defense pairings when David Savard's healthy. He's got 2 goalies that give the team a chance to win. And this is only year 3 of a rebuild. You look at the Buffalo Sabres, you look at other teams going through, it's quite remarkable. And Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton and Marty St. Louis deserve a lot of credit for what we see on the ice now, only 3 years into a full rebuild. Like, this is really, and they're fun to watch. It's an entertaining hockey team right now. There's a lot of reason for optimism with the team. And the next year you're going to add Demidov. Michael Hage is a year or 2 away. David Reinbacher, this is a write-off season for him, but if he plays up to the potential they think he can from when they made our number 5 overall pick, Jacob Fowler coming up, there's another goalie. There's just a lot of reason for optimism with this team right now. And what Gorton and Hughes have done in 3 years is quite remarkable when you see what's on the ice right now.
Well, you mentioned the other teams, and I remember I've been preaching it forever. They have to strike a balance of, are they ready to be a sustained playoff team going forward? I don't think I'm ready to make that jump. Can they make the push this season? Absolutely. Like we said, they're in position to strike. So they can do that. But moving forward, I'm not ready to make that jump. So you have to strike a balance in between winning, playing good hockey, but also bearing in mind with what's ahead to the future. Now, I'm not talking about, like we were 2 years ago and last year, players never do this anyways, but throwing games, maybe coaches do it by putting Caden Primo in the net, but, by throwing games, I remember last year, they were in a race for, I think it was 4th overall, and people were so upset that they ended up getting 5th, and everyone was crying because, why did they have to win that game? Well, now the balance that they have to strike now is, what do you do with a Jake Evans? What do you do with a Yoel Armia? Christian Dvorak, whatever. But, with these expiring contracts, it turns out that some of these guys are some of the most important players on this team this season. And that's going to be it's a very interesting position for Gorton and Hughes to be in, because I don't know what they're going to do. And, a lot can happen in 2 months time by the time the deadline rolls around or whatever it is. A lot can happen. But if things keep going the way they are going, I don't know. I'm at a loss. I don't have a take on it. I haven't done the analysis of what I think they should do, but you'd have to think that, if teams come a knocking with offering first round picks, second round picks, at this point, I don't really think third and fourth round picks do it for you if you're in a playoff position and you're still in the mix and you're ready to strike for a playoff position. Third and fourth round picks aren't going to cut it, but first and second round picks, that's a hard thing to pass up on if you're Kent Hughes.
Yeah, but one of the interesting things Kent Hughes said on his midseason press conference the other day is that they're beyond the point now of adding more draft picks and prospects. They have a lot. They have a lot of draft picks already moving forward. They have a lot of prospects in the system. We mentioned them earlier. They're at the point now they want guys who are going to make the team better now, while still leaving the door open for, as Hugh said, a Lane Hudson who comes in and just says, I'm here and you can't get rid of me because I'm too good. So they're leaving that open also. But like Jake Evans, I'd be surprised. I know Renaud Lavoie tweeted this week that they're close to signing him, and Renaud's pretty plugged in with some of his connections. I can see why the Canadiens want to re-sign Jake Evans. I think they should. Christian Dvorak, I think they can replace. You got Owen Beck coming up. I think he can do a lot of what Christian Dvorak does for a lot less money and provide more offense also. But can you replace Dvorak and Jake Evans and Yoel Armia? Like Yoel Armia is playing great hockey. I think it depends what they get offered for him. And then you wonder, is the way he's playing, does Kent Hughes even look into re-signing him for a fraction of what he's making now? If he wants to stay in Montreal, or if he's going to be, I think it's a tough decision to make, because Armia and Evans are your two best penalty killers, and the Canadiens penalty kill again tonight. They limited Ovechkin to one shot. Those are, I think, David Savard. I think you trade David Savard unless there's you're getting offered nothing for him and it's not really worth it. You're better off keeping him to see if you can get in the playoffs this season. But Armia and Evans are the two guys I think that are really tough question marks now as to what are you going to get in return. Jake Evans, you get a lot in return, but I still think if you lose him, it's like, when they lost Lars Eller tonight. The Canadiens traded Lars Eller 8 years ago for 2 second-round draft picks that didn't turn out. Lars Eller is still a very effective player in the NHL. Jake Evans, it's sometimes you don't appreciate those guys till they're gone, like Philip Danault, like him. So again, I would really be looking to re-sign Jake Evans. I think he wants to stay in Montreal. I think he likes it here. Him and Brendan Gallagher are great friends. He enjoys the market. He understands the pressure. And I think with Jake Evans, he just keeps getting – I don't think this is a fluke what's happening this season with him. You can see he's gaining more confidence offensively. And he told me earlier this season, everywhere he's played, he started off on as a fourth liner, going back to junior. When he came to Laval, when he went to Notre Dame, he was a fourth liner. He worked his way up. He became captain. He became an offensive player. He went to Laval. He was a fourth liner. He was a healthy scratch. He worked his way up and became a leading scorer in Laval. With the Canadiens, a fourth liner. But you just see he has so much more confidence offensively with the puck now. He shoots when he gets a chance to score. He's not always looking to pass. And I think he's just going to get better. I think Jake Evans will be better next year than he is this year, just with that confidence it's building. So I think I wouldn't want to let him go. But you're right. Ken Hughes is going to have a lot of decisions to make. And what the team does between now and the March 7th deadline is going to help them with those decisions, right? I mean, if they're in a solid playoff spot, it's going to take a lot to get rid of like an Armia, or it's going to take a lot to get rid of David Savard. It's going to take a lot to get rid of Yoel Armia. If they're out of a playoff spot, it's a different ballgame, right? Then you're looking to make deals. But at this point, I don't see them not being right in there in the playoff fight come March 7th.
Well, you mentioned some of the teams that they're competing with. And, I think this might be a little bit too much disrespect on Pittsburgh, maybe just because of the way that they started the season, even though they, crapped all over the Habs earlier in the season. But I think the biggest issue is going to be Columbus. Columbus looks like a really good hockey team, and that is crazy that we're uttering these words. It's also crazy that we're uttering that the Canadiens are in the playoff push, considering where they were, 3 weeks ago. But that's neither here nor there. But I think Columbus is going to be the biggest issue for that team. Ottawa maybe, but the Canadiens, they have I think 3. I looked ahead at their schedule from now till the end of the season. I think they have 2 or 3 games left against the Ottawa Senators. So those are going to be really big games. The Boston Bruins, they're just in free fall right now. Nobody knows what the hell we're watching the downfall of the Boston Bruins in front of our very eyes. It's really quite.
It wasn't Jimmy Montgomery's fault, I guess.
No, it wasn't. Yeah. It definitely wasn't. So it's really, there's a lot of things that could happen, like we said, but we'll see what they do going forward. It's just, to put a price tag on Jake Evans, I as good as he's been, I would have a hard time swallowing a pill that's $3.5 $4 million for listen, you could call him a fourth liner, you could call that line the fourth line. They're not really a fourth line. I mean,
they don't really have a fourth line. The Habs they have a first line, and then they have 3 other lines.
Well, that's it. Because the Jake Evans line,
the other 3 lines are sort of interchangeable, right? They're you throw them out there, and the fourth line is providing more offense than the other 2 lines.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They're effectively the second line
that's producing. You have 3 other lines that you roll, and in today's NHL, when you can roll 4 lines and 3 defense pairings, that's huge. Like, that is just huge. Your top line is getting rest. You're not burning guys out. You're confident. Your coach has confidence in every line. Like, these lines have been set now for quite a while. This is the longest I remember the Canadiens having 4 set lines for an extended period of time. And, players like Brendan Gallagher talked with him before the season, just saying how, his game is sort of a straight ahead type of game, and it's easier for him to play when he has the same line mates all the time. And I think that's the same for any kind of player, really. When you have set line mates, you can you figure stuff out. You know where guys are going to be. You can make a pass without even looking, knowing the guy's going to be there. And there's not a lot of teams in the NHL that can roll 4 lines and 3 defense pairings. And again, as I mentioned earlier, now you got 2 goalies that whichever one's in the net, you're confident they can give you a chance to win.
The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Energy Transportation Group is a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. We're also brought to you by Playground. The World Cup of Cards returns to Playground from January 22nd to February 2nd with over $900,000 in guarantees spread over 16 championship ring events. Highlights include a $400,000 guaranteed multi-day main event and the multi-day PG 300 mega stack event with $150,000 guaranteed. The World Cup of Cards at Playground as of January 22nd. Visit playground.ca for details. We're also brought to you by La Bittt Tibi beer. La Bittt Tibi has launched their Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer, perfect for those chilly winter days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% alcohol per can. Available in packs of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. Finally, we're brought to you by Betway. Go all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is available only for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer not available in Ontario. You must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. One guy who we have not talked about enough, we've touched his name and we've spoken about him a little bit on this episode, has been Kaiden Guhle. And I think, since Carrier has come in, you said it, he has just been a man possessed. It's really unbelievable because during this slide, he was kind of not noticeable. At the beginning of the season, we're kind of talking about nice plays that Kaiden Guhle's made, and then he gets injured, comes back, and he's, I wouldn't say struggling, but irrelevant is the word I would use. Just not a factor, really. He's just like any other defenseman. And all of a sudden in this, 11 game stretch where I think they're 9-2, he has been just, we're watching a number one defenseman flourish before our very eyes. And it's really quite something to see happen, live and in person. When was the last time the Canadiens had a defenseman that they drafted, went through their ranks, and he's developing in front of your very eyes? The last time I could think of one is PK Subban. And after that, it's been, nothing but signings and failed draft picks.
He's 22 years old. It's 22. It's remarkable. And he's such, you talk with Kaden Guhle, he's one of the nicest young men you could ever meet. He's just a pleasure to speak with, just a really nice young man. But on the ice, he's nasty. Like, he's got a mean streak switch that he hits when he goes on the ice. That hit against Vancouver the other night, and tonight he had 4 hits. He's a physical. He likes the physical game, a big, strong kid. He likes to hit. And, we're asking about that hit in the game against Vancouver, and he was saying, in junior, he used to, that's part of what got him to the NHL. Was a big part of what got him to the NHL as a first-round pick was his physical play. But as he said, once you get to the NHL, the game's so much quicker, faster, players are better, and you're a young defenseman trying to prove you can play in the NHL. You're not looking for the big hit, right? You're looking not to make mistakes. But he's reached the point now, as Marty's saying, he's not running around the ice looking to make big hits, but when there is one, he isn't shy to throw it. But he's so much more than that. I mean, Marty said yesterday, he's just an all-around defenseman. He can skate, he can shoot, he can hit, he has offense, he can play defense, he can play lots of minutes, he can play on his offside if you need him to play on the offside. He's better on his left side, but he's shown he can play on the right side. He can kill. He's just like at 22 years old. Like, what a solid, like a steal at the number 16 overall pick in the NHL draft, and just a really solid. If Nick Suzuki wasn't captain of his team, he has a quality to be captain of this team. Respected in the locker room, a quiet leader, sort of like Nick Suzuki is. But I love that he has that nasty switch he can turn on and be mean and be a real SOB to play against. And that's coming out even more. And Carrier has allowed that to happen quicker than it would have happened if he was playing with Justin Barron or one of the other young guys, where he was the veteran when he was playing with those guys, right? He was the guy who had to be aware and try and cover up for any mistakes that might happen. Whereas now it's Carrier is doing that for him. Like, Carrier is the veteran that he can lean on. And we're just seeing how much he is improving by doing that, by having a veteran defenseman it's similar in a lot of ways to him. Not as big as Kaiden Guhle, but a good skater, good offense, good defense, plays bigger than he is, can move the puck. And it also gives Marty St. Louis, now he's got 2 defense pairings he can put against the other team's number 1 line. Matheson and Hudson can play against the other team's number 1 line, and so can Guhle and Carrier. So that's another nice option that Marty St. Louis has with the way this team is set up right now.
You know what? It's really the unbelievable thing is the thing that I thought about was that I can't remember which game it was, but it was obviously after, one of those brutal losses. I don't know which one it was, but I remember coming on this podcast and saying, this team is lacking a dog, someone that's going to drag you into the fight. That player is Brendan Gallagher. He'll do that, but he's not the same. He doesn't hold the same role on the team that he used to. Maybe in the locker room he has, but he's not that guy because he's not that offensively gifted anymore. And now you want an impact player, an important player in your lineup who's a dog, who's going to set the tone, who's going to drag you into the fight. That player is Kaiden Guhle.
Yep.
It's really impressive to watch a 22-year-old like that come in with such confidence and just play like he's been playing in the NHL for 10 years already. It's really, really impressive to see what he's doing. He is a guy that is someone that, he's one of those players that it feels like if you're playing like shit one game, you kind of don't want to look at him. You want to avoid eye contact with him because he's going to be pissed off. He's that guy. He's that guy for the Canadiens right now. It seems like Carrier was the glue that really brought this team together because they've really been playing excellent hockey since he's arrived. But the guys that are stepping up now, like Kaiden Guhle, and, we've mentioned him before, it's in a different sense. It's not the physical sense, but Lane Hutson has just taken another step. He's always been, flashy, but now he's looking like the best player, not just skill-wise on the ice, but just period, point blank, best player on the ice whenever he's out there.
No, and with Guhle, as I said, leadership, he was named captain of Team Canada for World Junior Tournament. And he's got those leadership qualities. And, you look at that hit that he put on the Vancouver game. It's not a coincidence that Cole Caulfield opened the scoring less than a minute after that hit. He rattled the Vancouver team with that hit. And he's a guy like you need to know when he's on the ice. If you're in the opposition, you better keep your head up. And again, but that's not all he provides. He's an all around defense. He's 22 years old. I mean, he's only going to get better. Lane Hutson is only going to get better as he gets bigger and stronger. And the other thing he was mentioned when, we were talking earlier about how, with Kent Hughes, they're past the point of just adding prospects and draft picks. And when they made the trade for Carrier, he said, this isn't a short-term move. He made that clear right away. This is not a short-term move. This wasn't like, we're keeping this guy. We need a, they realize you can't win with 5 young defensemen in the lineup. You just can't. It just can't happen in today's NHL. And kudos to his manager for realizing that and correcting it. And
you're still seeing that, imagine the Canadiens tonight off all the penalties they took in the first period. If, they don't have Carrier to throw out there on the penalty kill, and, Savard's on the shelf, and it's, who do you look to after Kaden Guhle? There's really not much else in terms of reliability. So that's why, for all the fans that are just the second someone good steps into the lineup and, it makes the next guy replaceable, like I'm seeing a lot of get Mike Matheson, trade him now. Mike Matheson played 27 minutes tonight.
You took the words out of my mouth. The last 2 games, Mike Matheson has been outstanding. And it's not a coincidence that all the focus is on Lane Hutson and everybody loves Lane Hutson, and rightfully so. But one of the reasons Lane Hutson is playing as well as he is right now is because he has Mike Matheson as his partner. And people say, the giveaways. Lane Hutson has more giveaways this season than Mike Matheson does. I looked it up today. Mike Matheson ranks like 60th in the NHL among defensemen in giveaways, and he plays 26 minutes a game. Any offensive defenseman, when he carries a puck a lot, is going to have giveaways. Lane Hutson has a lot of giveaways. People don't talk about Lane Hutson giveaways the same way they talk about Mike Matheson's giveaways. Everybody loves Lane Hutson, right? But together, and I wondered a bit when Marty put them together too. You got 2 offensive defensemen. You got Matheson now playing on his wrong side. Is this really going to work? But it's worked really well. It really, really has worked well. They feed off each other. And what a great veteran for Lane Hutson to learn from with Mike Matheson. They have similar type of game. Mike Matheson, off the ice, he takes care of his body. He does everything he needs to be ready for the next game. So it's almost like Lane Hudson's playing with a coach on the ice and sitting beside him on the bench. It's the same thing with Arbor Xhekaj with David Savard as his partner. It's like having a coach on the ice with you and sitting on the bench with you. And, so now you have all 3 defense pairings when David Savard's healthy. I imagine he'll play tomorrow night against Dallas. He practiced yesterday with the team. I'm sure he skated today in Brassard along with Laine. I imagine both of them will be back tomorrow. But now you've got 3 defense pairings with a kid and a veteran. You got Hudson with Matheson. You got Guhle with Carrier, and you got Xhekaj with Savard. And, I think we're going to see that moving forward. Management realized they can't win with 5 young defensemen. You need to have a veteran presence. And right now, those 3 pairings work really, really well together.
So we do have a question to get to, but first, this is amazing. I love when this happens. We've got a Friday night surprise for everyone. The man, the myth, the legend, the show's namesake has decided to join us on Friday evening. Producer Shane, bring him up. Mr. Tony Marinaro.
Hello.
Tony, you're gonna dance?
Let's go. There he is. That's how we feel tonight. That's how we feel after tonight. Tony, what's going on?
It's Fridays is usually my night off, and you fill in very well for me. But tonight it was almost stronger than me, and I said, "Look, there's something special going on. Something special happened with the St. Louis Blues when they were last in the National Hockey League on a certain January 3rd, I believe it was. And then they went on to win the Stanley Cup. And I'm not going to tell you the Canadiens are going to win the Stanley Cup because that would be no one would be able to predict that, and that would be a minor miracle. But this team believes. It's a couple of weeks now, and I don't know what the turning point was. And I would imagine that there's not one turning point. There are a couple. But the team believes. Like tonight, I got a phone call from my cousin who lives probably about 10, 11, 12-minute drive from my place. And he says to me, he says, come over, we're going to watch the game. I don't remember when was the last time a buddy of mine called me up to say, come over, we're going to watch the Canadiens game. It just it hasn't happened in the last couple of years. But all of a sudden, everyone's starting to believe now. And when Washington scored, my cousin and his buddy, who I was watching the game with, they were upset. And they wanted this win. And so they're starting to believe, and they believe they can make the playoffs. And, they're going crazy every time Dobesh is making a save, and they're going crazy every time the Canadiens are scoring a goal. And look, once again, there are some people watching us, and I've been for the rebuild for the longest time. And I have to admit, I'm one of those who, if it was up to me, it would be a rebuild that would last a very, very long time. But I've been able to change my mind. Like, I was one of those that, for me, not to the point like Simon Snake Boisvert, who says, no, 1 more year, 2 more years. They really need to get a top 5 pick this year. And then, next year he's going to say the same thing. And the year after he's going to say the same thing. And the year after, 1 year it's going to be because there's James Higgins, or there's Matthew Schaefer, or there's Michael Misa. The next year it's going to be because there's Gavin McKenna. The next year it's going to be because there's a Landon DuPont or whatever. And it never ends, right? Because you'll see attractive players at the draft all the time. But there's a group of people who have said, you can't lose all the time. It's not good for team culture. And some of those people, and they're not the only ones, but they're the people leading the Canadiens, Gordon, Hughes, Marty St. Louis. And they've convinced me that, they're right. I take a look at Buffalo. I take a look at Ottawa. I take a look at Arizona, now Utah, whatever. There's a lot of clubs that have been in a rebuild for 5, 7, 9, 11, 12, 13 years. At one point, if you lose all the time and you accept losing all the time, it sinks in and guys just get used to it. That's the culture. And that's the culture they're trying to avoid. And you know what? They're doing a really good job. They got blown away 5 times, Stu, in the month of October, as you know. They got blown away only once in November. They got blown away only once in December. It was a bad one versus Pittsburgh. But we're seeing a team that's growing. And guys, we're seeing a coach and a coaching staff that's growing. Like, I have a lot of confidence in Marty St. Louis. I applauded his hiring when a lot of people did not. I said he was the perfect man for the job with the Canadiens in a rebuild. I really thought he got out-coached badly on many occasions in October and November. And I was mad at him for not calling timeouts or not sitting guys or not making guys accountable and stuff like that. I will admit that the way they played defensive hockey, I thought they needed to add some experience next to him. Right, Stu? To get
I agreed, and I asked Kent Hughes that question at his news conference about why he decided not to bring in a more experienced coach.
Stu, I'll tell you this. Never, ever did I think the Canadiens should fire Marty St. Louis.
No, me either.
But I
thought he could use some help, especially when they're running around their own end looking so unorganized.
Can I take it a step further? I'd be willing to bet that Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes thought that he could have used some help at 1.2.
Yeah.
And Marty didn't want it. And you know what? He won his bet.
But Kent also, Tony, at the news conference, didn't rule out bringing in a more experienced coach to help him moving forward.
Yeah.
He said Marty wanted to show what he could do. And you wonder, Luke Richardson's out there, right?
Yeah.
And if no other head coaching opportunities come up for him before the start of next season, do they maybe reach out to him and bring him back? Because there's nothing wrong with adding another experienced coach, even if Marty's doing a good job, right?
Yeah. I don't think
on Marty St. Louis.
I don't think Luke Richardson's a head coach, but I mean that's another story for
No,
another day.
but
as an assistant coach, that's why. What I'm saying is, I don't.
That's
think
why I don't know if he's going to get another head coaching job.
I don't think he will. I hope he does, if that's what he wants to do. Obviously, so you and I love Kirk Muller, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Kirk Muller's a great associate coach.
Yep, he's not a good. Exactly.
I think he's a better associate coach than he is a head coach.
I agree.
Right? Larry Robinson won the Stanley Cup as a coach, but I think he's a better associate coach than he is a head coach. He didn't want to be a head coach for very long. It was, and so I got to admit, I didn't think the Canadiens could play better defensive hockey without help. And for that, like, so much respect. Like, I tip my hat. I really do. And you know what? I wonder how much input Roger Grillo has had, because he's the eye in the sky. He's the guy from above who they didn't put on the bench. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall and be part of those meetings. But guys, once again, this is so great for the city. It's so like the city, like, geez, we don't have much left.
No. Well, Tony, you were talking about your cousin who came over to watch the game, you said, with you?
No, my cousin invited me over to his house to watch the game. And there were like 4 or 5 other people there.
Tonight I watched the game with my wife, her friend, and my son. And my wife will watch usually a period or two and then go read or do something else. They all stayed for the whole game. The game ends. I get a text from my 93-year-old dad saying, "Oh my God, what a game! What a win!" They're winning over the hearts of this city. They're not only are they winning, but they're just fun to watch. Like,
the city needed it, Stu. They needed it. Like, I know they went to the Stanley Cup final in 2021 and all that stuff, but the last 3 years has been difficult. But the city needed it. I mean, like, the
city loves the Canadiens.
Well, they love the Canadiens. I mean, there's not much going on in the city as much as there. This. I don't want to get into this.
I know.
Like, the city has lost a lot of its life.
The Canadiens are the heartbeat of the city.
They're the heartbeat of the city. Well,
they really are.
You know what? It's funny because I was talking about it with my friends after Monday's win. I said, after that game against Vancouver, what a freaking game that was. And I said, I can't believe we have to wait till Friday to watch this team again. Yeah. That was my initial reaction.
The Canadiens are the one thing in this city that unites everybody, right? It doesn't matter if you're English or you're French or what religion you are, whatever you are. People love the Canadiens. And the passion for the Canadiens is higher now than it's ever been, even back in the 70s when they were the dynasty, Tony, because of what you said. The city's changed, right?
Yeah.
The Canadiens were part of the city back then. Now they're I don't want to say they are the city, but they're probably the biggest thing in this city right now, right?
Stu, and it's funny.
People live and die with this team.
Yeah. Last night I was hosting, and joining me were Brian Wild and Simo Snake Boisvert. And Brian and I are on the Nick Suzuki's a number one centerman, and Snake.
By the way, I'm glad you didn't kill yourself last night, Tony.
Well, and I'm glad too. And Snake Boisvert is not on that bandwagon yet, right? And Snake's comment is, when Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield become second line players for the Montreal Canadiens, well, then they're going to be a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, and I get that, right? I get that, but I had another opinion. And I shared it with him yesterday, and I don't know if I'm ever going to change my opinion. I think I'm gonna stick with this for a while. But I believe that if the Canadiens shore up some holes and grow and add depth, Suzuki and Caulfield don't have to be in secondary roles. I believe that Suzuki and Caulfield could be on a first line that could win the Stanley Cup. And by the way, maybe most people probably think I'm crazy, Stu.
No, I agree with you. They're both. I mean, Cole Caulfield's on pace to score 46 goals, and Nick Suzuki's a point-a-game player.
So that's exactly right. Like, I don't understand. So, I got a text message from a buddy of mine today who saw on Twitter, one of the clips from last night where I said that Nick Suzuki is a number one centerman, and I hope by now he's shut everyone up and he's proven to all the haters that he is, right? a number one centerman. And one of my buddies sent me a text message with like an emoji of like shaking his head saying, I can't believe you said that, right? Because he disagrees. He doesn't believe Nick Suzuki is a number one centerman. So we've had this, he and I have had this going on for a while. I believe Nick Suzuki is a number one centerman. By the way, we brought up a graphic yesterday, the stats, like I think his first season was 0.55 or 56 points per game. And then he went up and then he went up and then he went up and then he went up.
Yeah,
last year it was
it's linear progression. For
last year was at
He's
0.94.
improved every year since he's been
And
in
going
the
into
show.
tonight's game, he's at 1.02 points per game, right? So anyway, I've been on this whole Suzuki's a number one centerman since the beginning, and he hasn't, okay? So anyway, today he sends me an emoji of shaking my head. I can't believe you said Nick Suzuki's a number one centerman again. And I said, well, he is. And then he said to me, I can name you 20 better than him right now. So then
20.
I said to him, and I disagree with that, but I said to him, well, there's 32 teams in the National Hockey League, so I guess he's a number one centerman. And then he said to me, well, he's not a number one centerman on a team that's going to go far in the playoffs. So now we're changing the narrative now.
Mhm.
Now we're changing the story. Now he's not a number one centerman, and now he's not a centerman on a team that can go far in the playoffs.
You know what teams go far in the playoffs, Tony?
Yeah.
Teams that can roll four lines.
Correct.
So is Nick Suzuki the best number one centerman in the league or the top five? No. But how many teams with top one centerman can roll all four lines on their team through
So
playoffs?
to your point, so my response to my buddy was, and then he said to me, he said, well, I know one team where he would be the third line centerman on that team. And I said, yes, you're talking about Edmonton. He'd be the third line centerman behind McDavid and Draisaitl. He said, yes. And I said, well, they haven't won a cup either. So what's your point? Like Edmonton hasn't won a cup because they could use a stay-at-home defenseman who logs 25 minutes per game.
And they couldn't afford Nick Suzuki. They couldn't afford Nick Suzuki at his salary as a third line center.
Well, but correct. But,
Yeah.
you know, but I said to him, but if Edmonton has the two best centermen in the game or two of the top three centermen in the game, and they still haven't won a cup, that should be enough to tell you that you need other elements. You need a goalie who gets hot and makes the right save at the right time. You need a horse on defense who's a number one who plays 25 minutes a game. You need a shutdown defenseman. You need four lines. You need it all, right? And so that's what I'm saying. And what I said yesterday was, okay, some people are going to say Nick Suzuki is not a number one centerman because he hasn't hit 85 points yet, or he hasn't hit 90 points, or he hasn't hit 95. Okay, no problem. Take Braden Point out of Tampa, put him on the Canadiens to play with Caulfield and Slafkovsky. I put Suzuki in Tampa to play with Kucherov and Gensel, with Victor Hedman on defense and John Cooper as his coach, and a team that is the Tampa Bay Lightning. Is he going to hit 90 points? Yes. So because he doesn't hit it with the Canadiens, because he probably doesn't have that kind of a team yet, or that kind of a support, or that kind of a third line mate on the number one line, that's why he's not. Like everyone said Patrice Bergeron was a number one centerman. He never picked up a point per game in his career. And he's one of the best 200-foot players I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
You know, he was, in my opinion, the best player of the very famous 2003 draft. Bergeron was drafted 45. He never picked up a point per game. He did everything, though.
But you know, Tony, when you were talking earlier about St. Boisvert, you know, you want another good draft pick next year and another good draft pick the year after that. At Kent Hughes' midseason news conference, he was saying they're sort of beyond the point now of wanting more draft picks and prospects because they already have a lot. They want guys who are going to help the team right now. If you look at the Canadiens roster right now, Kirby Dach is 23. Alex Newhook is 23. Nick Suzuki is 25. Emil Heineman is 23. Patrick Laine is 26. Juraj Slafkovsky is 20. Cole Caulfield is 24. Joshua Roy, if he ever gets a major, is 21. Kaiden Guhle is 22. Lane Hudson is 20. Arbor Jacki is 23. They have tons of young players here already, right?
And Demidov coming next year. They just have to support
Michael Hage coming up. They have, I was saying before you came on, I was telling Matt, like what they have accomplished in 3 years of a rebuild is quite remarkable. When you look at the mess of this team when they took over, this is a lot of talent on this team and a lot of young talent on this team that is going to be together for another 3, 4, 5 years, building together, building that bond that we're seeing they've built already, this sort of brotherhood they have in the room. And you were talking about the turning point. I think the turning point in this season, I mentioned the matter, was that 9-2 loss to Pittsburgh on home ice when they were booed off the ice. I think the players were embarrassed. I think management was embarrassed. I think Jeff Molson was embarrassed. And they took action. And they made a couple of moves that made a big difference.
And look, and Matt, if I can, I wanted to go with that Suzuki thing because, so there I am. I'm watching the game with my cousin and a friend and a couple of friends and stuff like that, right? The second they get the game to overtime, I looked at them and I said, Suzuki's going to score. Now, this is not because I'm smart. It's because it's happened 3 times already. He's a clutch player.
Suzuki, Caulfield, and Lane Hudson on in 3-on-3.
That's deadly. It's
I'll take my odds. I like those odds.
It's getting to the point where the Canadians know if they could take the game to overtime, they're going to win. They're going to win. And Suzuki's going to score, or Caulfield's going to score, or they're going to win. And so Nick Suzuki, most overtime goals this year with Leon Draisaitl. They have 4 goals apiece. Cole Caulfield scores another huge goal tonight in the hockey game. And so I'm happy that Suzuki was the hero again tonight, because it's coming to a point where, even if you had that opinion, swallow your pride. Swallow your pride. He's a number 1 centerman. Don't change the narrative now and say, well, he's not a number 1 centerman on a playoff team. You said he's not a number 1. He is. All the stats prove it. He was top 15 for centerman in goals last year, top 15 for centerman in points last year, top 15 for forwards and offensive puck possession in the offensive zone. He's top 15 again this year for points. He's a clutch. He is. Well, what more does he have to do? He's a 200-foot player.
So 2 things on that.
He should be at the Four Nations tourney.
There's 3 things. There's 3 types of takes out there that this is made famous by Nick Wright on Fox Sports 1. There's 3 types of takes. There's category 1, where you're right away. There's category 2, where you're right eventually. And there's category 3, where you're absolutely wrong. And I think everyone who had that opinion, Tony, of Nick Suzuki is it's time to admit you're wrong. It's time.
With all due respect to Snake, yeah. Well, when if Suzuki and Caulfield are going to be the 4th and 5th best forwards on the Canadiens, they're going to be a Stanley Cup contender. And if they're going to be the 7th and 8th best forwards, they're going to win the cup. But how many teams have 3 forwards on their team better than Nick Suzuki? Let's just talk about bring up a team. Okay? So for
Colorado,
example,
the Colorado Avalanche. Go ahead.
No, they don't. Because
that's right. That's what I'm saying.
They have McKinnon and maybe Rantanen, but Landeskog's been hurt. Colorado does not have 3 forwards better than Nick Suzuki. And I would make an argument that Nick Suzuki could be a more valuable player than a Rantanen. I'm not going to tell you he's better than a McKinnon, but I will tell you, and Brian Wild said this, Brian Wild said this the other day, that when the Canadiens beat the Panthers, Suzuki outplayed Barkov, and when they beat Tampa Bay, he outplayed Braden Point, and when they beat Vegas, he outplayed Jack Eichel, and when they beat Colorado, he outplayed McKinnon. Now, we didn't say he's better than those guys, because he's not. He's not. But it's a fact that he outplayed them. So that clip goes out there on the internet as well. People are like, oh, you guys are crazy. You're smoking. What do you mean? It's not a fact that he outplayed Barkov, Point, Eichel, and McKinnon those 4 games. It's a fact. He outplayed them.
Well,
we didn't say it's better.
I'm just looking at the stats now, Tony. Suzuki ranks 14th in the NHL among centers in scoring with 42 points in 41 games. He's got 1 more point than Sean Monahan. He's got 3 more points than Anze Kopitar. He's got more points than Matt Duchene. You go down the list of guys he's ahead of there. He's got more points than Alexander Barkov. He's in pretty good company up there.
Guys, we got 2 questions to get to, and I'm happy that we're talking about this now, because this is a great segue into this, because this is one that I love, and I think I know all of your answers. I know my answer to this question the second I read it. So producer Shane, throw it up. It's great to celebrate. This is from Joe on YouTube. It's great to celebrate. I'm celebrating too. But when do we take a step back and admit that we faced a lot of backups during this run, and it might be the reason for this success? So my take on this is the same thing for any NFL team that goes on a run, any NBA team that goes on a run, any hockey team that goes on a run. You can only play the games that are on your schedule. You can only play what's in front of you. It doesn't matter what goalie was in the net. The players were on the ice. You played an NHL hockey team. You think if a team makes the playoffs by 2 points and one of those wins was the last game of the season and it's against the Montreal Canadiens or the San Jose Sharks or the Anaheim Ducks, that they're going to say, did they really make the playoffs though? They had to beat the Canadiens to get in. No, that's not how it is. You can only play the games that are on your schedule, and you can only play the players that are on the other side of the ice.
Yeah, it's like when they say you only beat teams that aren't in the playoff position. Well, you got to win those games, right?
Stu,
a win is a win is a win in the NHL.
Yeah, Stu said something about that loss versus the Penguins, right? I remember, I obliterated them that game because,
it was embarrassing. They rolled over and died.
In the last 15 minutes, they all quit.
Yep.
Right? Luckily, they didn't quit on their coach. Luckily, they just quit on 15 minutes of hockey. Okay? So they quit on 15 minutes of hockey. When you're faced with adversity in life, you either crumble or you rise to the occasion. They rose to the occasion. And for that, you have to tip your hat and you have to say, respect. That's it. You know that emoji of the boy who tips his cap? Respect. The Canadiens rose in adversity. They rose to the occasion. And you know what? They deserve it. Marty St. Louis, I think, a month ago deserved the criticism, and 1 month later, I think he deserves the accolades. 1 month ago, Kirby Dach deserved the criticism, and 1 month later,
that's sports, Tony. Let's we're paid. The people say, last year you were ripping Joel Armia. Yeah, because he was horrible.
Well,
that's our job, right? When guys play well, you talk about them playing well, and they play poorly.
Josh Anderson was horrible a year ago. 1 year later, I think he's great in his role. I think he's great in his role.
After that blowout loss to Pittsburgh, Tony, the post-game news conference, I asked Marty, I can't remember exactly how I phrased the question, it was something along like, I don't know if you get upset or angry behind the bench, but if you do, what made you upset or angry tonight? And he paused, like Marty does sometimes we're answering a question. He said he wasn't angry, he was disappointed in the way the players felt. At the time, I was thinking to myself, man, if there was ever a time for him to be angry, that was the night to be angry. But what he says is, what he says to us in the media doesn't matter. What matters is what he says to the players in the room.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if when he went in the room, if he was angry or if he said what he said to us. Guys, I'm just really disappointed in you guys. Like, I thought you were better than that.
Yeah.
And maybe if that's what he said, I'm speculating here, but maybe if that's what he said, maybe that had the impact. Because Kaiden Guhle told me the other day, he said, we played for Marty. When things were going bad, we decided we had to play better for Marty. He says, we love him as a coach. We want to win from him. We want to play well from him. So I'm wondering if maybe that is what he said when he went in the room. He just said, man, am I disappointed in you guys?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what struck a nerve. And they were like, you know what? We really got to play better for this guy.
Yeah. I remember when Marty said, why am I going to take advice from people that I would never go to advice for?
Yeah.
Cole Caulfield and Juraj Slafkovsky went on social media and they liked his posts. Right. It was their way of showing support to the coach. And look, once again,
well, what's that line? Once you start listening to the fans, then you become one.
You're right. That's a good one. But once again, I want to get back to Marty for a second. I think it's important because he's growing as a coach in front of our very own eyes. I thought Marty had a couple of weaknesses, and I thought one of them was that Marty hadn't transitioned from player to coach yet. And every now and then he would say things that he would say as a player, and the player in him would come back, and he wasn't sounding like a coach. He was sounding like a player. When guys like me or somebody else got upset because he wasn't scratching Kirby Dach, putting him up in the press box, when guys like me got upset because he wasn't hammering guys at the end of the game during the press conference, in the end, his team probably wouldn't have reacted, and he probably wouldn't have his team fighting for him the way they are if he would have listened to guys like me, and he would have done some of the things I wanted him to do. So in that regard, he was right. I was wrong. He was right. Others were wrong. He was right. He did it his way. He said he wasn't going to change for anyone. He wasn't going to change the way he was going to do things. He stuck with his methodology, and he was right.
Well, I asked him the other day, Tony, for a column I'm going to write next week about Hall of Fame players becoming coaches, right? Jacques Lemaire was very successful. Larry Robinson was very successful. Wayne Gretzky was horrible as a coach, right?
Yeah.
As a Hall of Fame player. I asked Marty about his own, like, how does being a Hall of Fame player impact you in becoming a coach? And he had a great answer. He said, when I came into the league, nobody expected me to be a Hall of Famer. Like, he was undrafted. He went on waivers. He cleared waivers. He was a healthy scratch. He bounced around. Nobody expected him to become a Hall of Famer. He had to work for everything he got in hockey, right? And as he said, I was a healthy scratch. I cleared waivers. I was a fourth liner. I went to the minors. I was a first liner. I was an MVP. He can relate to what every single player is going through, whether they're the Nick Suzuki or whether they're a Mike Pizzetta. He's been in their shoes before. He knows what it's like. And I think that along with his communication skills are his two biggest assets as a coach. And he said, I'm not a young hockey person or a young hockey mind. I've been around the game a long time, but I'm still a young coach and I'm learning. So when you admit you don't know everything, right, and you're learning, and he is still learning as a coach, and that goes back to what we were saying earlier. I don't think it would be hurtful to add another coach with more experience to give him a hand, and maybe they will do that moving forward. But Marty's just such a bright guy, and his communication skills are so good, and he has that instant respect of being a Hall of Famer, which Wayne Gretzky would have had when he came in as a coach. But could Wayne Gretzky relate to what a fourth liner is going through? Could Wayne Gretzky relate to what a guy being a healthy scratch is going through, or what a guy who just got put on waivers? No, because he's never been there. And I think that's one of Marty's biggest strengths, is that he's been in the shoes or the skates of just about every single player he's dealing with. And as you mentioned, Tony, guys wanted him to bench Kirby Dach. And I wrote at one point, it'd be a good idea to maybe give him a game, even if it's just to give him a mental break. But he stuck with him, and he realized he was coming back from a major knee injury. And maybe Marty never went through that himself, but he probably had teammates who went through it, right? And he knows how difficult that can be. And the faith he showed in Kirby Dach is paying off now. Juraj Slafkovsky, the faith he showed in him last season paid off. He knows you got to get the players to want to do what you want them to do. And players want to win for Marty St. Louis. And Kaiden Guhle said that straight out.
You want to juxtapose Marty with, because we talk so much that coaches only have so many bullets in their chamber and what they could do. And he's already, he's already shot the bullet, my team is soft bullet. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I saw a clip during, I think it was the first intermission. I sent it over to a buddy on my Twitter feed. It was 19 years ago to the day when Michel Therrien, head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, got up in front of the microphone and said, I think this group of defensemen is trying to be the worst group of defensemen in the NHL. They're soft like you'd never believe. And
they don't care. Yeah.
They don't care. It's impressive that they want to be this bad. And he just went off for 2 minutes.
Well, actually, if I can correct you, he never said they were soft. He said they were soft.
Soft.
That's correct. That's right. He did say they were soft. So he said they were soft. So he still had the soft bullet. But anyways, if you do that and you explode on a player in the media, that is probably, especially with the way things were going for the team, that is probably the quickest way to lose a room and get a room to quit on you. Easily the quickest way.
Like I said earlier, I thought after that Pittsburgh game, that was the one night that Marty should have got angry. And I
was there with you.
Maybe not a Michel Therrien rant, but if I was head coach of that team that night, I would have been pissed. I would have been like, that's inexcusable what you guys did. You rolled over and died on home ice and you were booed off the ice. But again, maybe just that, man, I'm disappointed in you guys. As a father, Tony, as a dad, you say to your kids,
yeah,
man, I'm disappointed. That might have more of an impact sometimes than yelling and screaming at them. But you have to have the respect. You have to have the respect of the players to have them react that way, to you just saying, I'm disappointed in you guys.
Yeah. Soft. Pathetic performance, Matt. Are we going to be happy to play 8 minutes? What will those guys say?
That rant will live on along with the mustard jacket forever.
Hey, Stu, what will those guys say if we take 50% of their salary because they only play 50% of the time? I really think their goals is to be the worst defensive squad in the league. And they're doing such a great job to be the worst defensive squad in the league, you know? Matt, it's a game of emotion. It's a game of hard work. It's a game of passion. Kovalchuk, what he did the other day, there's not one guy that was close to doing something. Maybe Maxim Talbot. He's 5'8". 1 second left. He's 5'8". You know
that ranks right up. That ranks right up there with the NFL coach going playoffs.
Yeah,
playoffs.
yeah.
So
epic coach rants.
So let's finish off on this question. I think it's a very appropriate question given the vibe of this show so far. This one comes from Gregory.
Yeah.
Simple. Tony, have the Montreal Canadiens arrived?
They've arrived as an in the mix team.
Yes, they're in the mix.
They haven't arrived as a legitimate like Stanley Cup contender, but there's reason to believe that like 3 years from now, maybe this is a team that you won't want to face in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you know what's really opened the door here, besides the fact that Stu said, you know what, the Canadiens rose in adversity, and you know what, they were embarrassed, they were humiliated by Pittsburgh, and who knows what was said that night, but that seems to be, that loss there seems to be the turning point. And it's funny because sometimes a loss like that and everything goes downhill, and that ended up being, and I've said this, but the Rangers' demise and the Bruins' play have really opened the door here, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, hey, look, they're 2 points behind the Bruins. They have 3 games in hand,
and they're 2 games above 500.
Like my buddy,
it's not going to take. It's not going to take like 96 points to get in the playoffs this year.
No,
well, you even look at last year. Remember the race last year? There were about 8 teams for the vying for the last spot, and just come the end of the season, there's 10 games left. Nobody wanted it. They all were losing every single game. It's like, you take the spot. No, you take the spot. That's the East of today. It's very, very top heavy. The division leaders are the division leaders, but then there's a lot of room to play. The Canadiens could play with anyone. They've proved that. If nothing else, that's what they proved,
guys.
They could play with anyone.
Tell me what you think. I think in the Atlantic, Toronto, Florida, and Tampa Bay are going to be the teams that are going to finish in the top 3 in the Atlantic. In what order, I don't know, but I think it's going to be them. Okay, that's just my prediction, right? Then let's take a look at the teams that are in the wild card, right? Boston, Columbus, and then Pittsburgh's just out of it, and the Canadiens are just out of it, and the Red Wings and the Senators and the Rangers, the Islanders, the Flyers, the Sabres, right? Like the teams that are ahead of the Canadiens right now. So the Canadiens are ahead of the Red Wings, the Senators, the Islanders, the Flyers, the Sabres, the Rangers, we'll see. I think they're better than those teams. Now let's take a look at the teams that are ahead of the Canadiens. Pittsburgh by 1 point, but the Canadiens have 2 games in hand. Columbus by 1 point, Canadiens have a game in hand. The Bruins by 2 points, the Canadiens have 3 games in hand. Are Columbus and Pittsburgh really better than the Canadiens? Are they?
No. You know what, though, Tony? The Habs are 9-2 in their last 11, right?
Yeah.
But they're also 12-5 in their last 17. That's like 3 games shy of a quarter of a season. That's a pretty large sample size, or a significant sample size. Like, this isn't a fluke what's happening right now. This is a team that's consistency is the toughest thing for young players and young teams to find. And the Canadiens have found it now. They're a consistent team. And that was just a really impressive performance against one of the better teams in the NHL on the road tonight. Defensively, like earlier this season, could you have seen the Canadiens limiting the Washington Capitals to 17 shots and Alex Ovechkin to 1 shot? Not a chance in the world. But we're all a hybrid defensive system doesn't work. Marty needs a more veteran coach to help him out. The system is too complicated for the players. But Hughes and Gorton and Marty have had a belief in their plan from day one, and they've stuck to it. And now they're at a point, I mentioned earlier, the Carrier trade and calling up Dobis and Hughes saying in his news conference that we're not looking to add more prospects and picks. We're looking to, we have enough of those already. They're in a position that I wonder if they even thought they'd be this far advanced 3 years into the rebuild. When they said they wanted to be in the mix this year at the golf tournament, I believe they thought that. And I wrote that day that it's a legitimate sort of goal to set because they could possibly be in the mix. But I don't know if Kent Hughes thought this team could go on a 9-2-0 run over 11 games and go 4-1 in that road trip after Christmas.
Yeah. And what they also don't know is they don't know what the other teams are going to do, right? They couldn't possibly think that the Rangers were going to slide the way they slid. They couldn't possibly think that the Bruins were going to go through a coach and then all of a sudden, then today, I don't know if you saw the latest controversy, right? I'm sure you did.
Yep.
But one of the sports radio hosts on WEI in Boston said that Pasternak doesn't want to play with Marchand anymore, and the Bruins locker room and this and that and all that stuff. And Brad Marchand said it's not true, and him and Pasternak are best friends. And you know what? Who knows who's telling the truth there? But there's something not right in Boston.
No.
And there's something not right with the Rangers, and there is something right with the Canadiens.
Well, look at Boston. Jimmy Montgomery's a heck of a coach, right?
Yeah.
And they thought he was the problem, and obviously was more.
He's not the problem.
There's something else that's going wrong in the room.
Yeah, well, look at the Rangers. All the players they got rid of, they thought they were the problem. They weren't the problem either.
No. And with the Canadiens, the one thing in this room, and I've said it on Matt, like with Matt almost every Friday night in this team, this is a really good locker room. Like we were in that locker room, I'm in that locker room all the time, and you can tell they really like each other. And I think that road trip over Christmas, which in previous years has been a downfall for a season, excuse me, where playoff hopes went to die. And I asked a few of the guys about this. They're a young team. They don't have kids, right?
Yeah.
The guys. So that's a fun road trip, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And a bonding road trip. And I think it really helped bring them to where they are now. They were in some pretty good cities too. Vegas on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And I already spoke the other day too about how they've been really smart handling like when they practice, when they don't practice,
when they fly back.
They won that game New Year's Eve. They were supposed to practice New Year's Day in Vegas, and they canceled the practice. You're a player. You're a 23-year-old player. You're on a winning streak. You just won. You're in Las Vegas, and the coach says, we're not practicing tomorrow. Have fun tonight, boys. Be good. Don't go crazy. Have a good time. We'll see you at the airport in the afternoon. Bonus points for your coach, right?
Yeah.
They win the game in Colorado. Instead of flying home right after the game, they stay overnight. Again, guys, have fun tonight. Have a couple of beers, maybe. Enjoy yourselves. Don't go crazy. We're going to fly home tomorrow afternoon.
Pretty simple rule, eh? You give me your best. You win hockey games. Yeah. I'm going to give you some candy.
Exactly. Exactly. So they probably went out after the game in Colorado, had a nice meal, or a couple of glasses of wine, maybe a beer or two, good night's sleep, get on the plane, fly home. They didn't have a morning skate Monday before the Vancouver game. They'd been away from their families for a long time. Sleep in, spend some time with your wife, spend some time with your kids, show up at the rink, be ready to play. And all those things, I think, factor into what we're seeing right now with this team.
By the way, you mentioned young team. Let's talk about a young player, Juraj Slafkovsky. We give it to him when there's been games where he hasn't shown that second effort, that lack of implication. There was a great setup pass that he did to Cole Caulfield versus the Canucks. Remember that play? Yeah. Suzuki to Slav to Caulfield in the slot. And we saw, wow, Slav, what a really good pass. This guy can pass the puck really well.
Yep.
Tonight again, eh? Like everyone's talking about Caulfield's goal, but Slafkovsky's pass to Caulfield tonight was fantastic.
Well, he's only got 4 goals. He's got 19 assists.
Yeah.
So and he's 20 years old, and consistency is, again, the toughest thing for a young player, right? He's searching to find that consistency. Needs to move his feet more, needs to be more into the game, needs to be, he's 20 years old. And we saw the second half of last season what he's capable of doing. And hopefully for him and the Canadiens, we'll see that Slafkovsky return in the second half this season too. And if he does, Canadiens are definitely in the mix. And don't forget that they've played the last 4 games without Patrick Laine also. Even if they only use Patrick Laine on the power play, never put him on the ice in any other situation, they're a better team.
You're right. We thought
I'll say this.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I'll say this about Juraj Slafkovsky. The thing was last year was that Martin St. Louis was preaching patience. And I remember coming on this show every Friday with Stu saying, when's it going to come? When's it going to come? When's it going to come? And then in the new year, he shut us up pretty quick. This is the positive side on Slafkovsky. Is he looking like the dominant force like he looked like last year? No. But he's still putting up points. And he doesn't quite look like he's playing to the best of his capabilities. That, to me, is the most encouraging thing. He's falling into points because he's just that good. That's just how it is. So
he's also those that are good line mates, which helps also.
It helps also, but if you remember last year, he was the one that was the driving force of that line. Mm-hmm. Now, sure, you could make the argument he's riding the coattails of the line, but it's easy to fall by the wayside. It really is, because he got knocked off that line for a good amount of time during this season, and now he finds himself back on the line. And is he the driving force of the line again? No, but he doesn't quite have to be right now. So he's fitting in nicely. He's just going out there, like you said, Tony, made a beautiful, I would even go to say that was an elite pass to Cole Caulfield. That was an unbelievable pass.
Marty gave him a little wake-up call too, though, when he benched in the third period in Colorado.
Yeah.
That was okay. You're going to sit now. No, you're not going to compete the way we want you to compete and do what we've been telling you over and over and over and over and over to do. You're going to sit.
I don't want to stir the pot here, and I'm not going to be the first one to say it, but if Montembeault doesn't win tomorrow night, let the fun begin. Let the discussions begin. Let the debate begin. We're not going to talk about a goalie controversy, but Dobesh Dobesh went into Florida and won by shutout. He went into Colorado and gave up 1 goal in regulation and stopped them in overtime and in the shootout. And he went into Washington and he gave up 2 goals and he won there too. 3 really good teams. 3 teams that are part of the last 6 Stanley Cup winners. And Montembeault's last couple of games, his last game versus the Canucks was not very good, even though they won, right?
He did make some big saves.
He did.
Rough start, and then he made some big saves, and they were down by a goal to keep them in.
He did. He lost the game in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big game for Montembeault tomorrow. Once again, I'm not saying that, if he loses that Dobesh is number 1, Montembeault is number 2. No, the sample size is small. But what I'm saying, it's going to start to heat up in the debate. And it's good because it's internal competition.
He was getting no competition from Primo. He had no competition from Primo. He played 13 out of 14 games. It was his job, right? They had no faith in putting Kaiden Primo back in this. This is good for both of them.
Yeah.
Dobes is he's gonna want every goalie wants the net, right?
I love Dobesh. I loved him ever since I saw him last year.
For a big guy, Tony, though he moves so quick and he goes down and gets up so quick, and he's just so calm and cool. And I wrote a column yesterday on Pete Fry, his mental coach that works with him.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that he's had him working on. And he's just like, he just looks so calm out there. You can't believe this is his third game in the NHL. It's really, really impressive. And I think that calmness, and Montembeault has that too, that nothing really phases Montembeault too much. And to play in this market, to be a goalie in Montreal, it's not everybody can handle it, right? And now they got 2 guys that can handle the heat, it looks like, and it's going to be good moving forward. There's going to be there's open competition for the spot.
The first 10 minutes of the game tomorrow night will give us a really good indication, right?
Yep.
The Dallas Stars practiced today at noon in Montreal, and they spent Friday night in Montreal. The first 10 minutes of the game tomorrow, we're going to find out if the Dallas Stars stayed at the hotel or if the Dallas Stars enjoyed the city.
Yeah, went to Chez Paré. But Tony, it just goes back to your point on how the Canadiens, we said, when you face adversity, you have 2 choices. You could roll over or you could rise to the occasion. I wouldn't exactly call this adversity for Montembeault, but he is going through a little bit of a rough patch in his play compared to what he's able to do. Time to rise to the occasion. You got someone in your rearview mirror that's young, hungry, and wants the net. To Stu's point, everyone wants the net. So the internal competition is only a good thing.
Yep. You know what? This team is fun to watch right now. As we were talking about before. Just it's a lot of, they're playing entertaining hockey. They're winning, and it's not. Montreal needs this.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Once again, buddies are starting to call buddies. They're starting to text buddies. Yeah. Did you watch the game? What's the score? Canadians are winning. This, that, whatever. Come on over. Let's watch the game together.
Most importantly, Tony's dancing again.
Tony's dancing. You talked about Dobesh being a big guy with good moves. But he's it's fun. Look, it's a couple of times I hear it now, and I said it yesterday. If I hear of another trade suggestion involving Lane Hudson, I think I'm going to lose my mind. No, really, I'm. Yesterday
I didn't even. Those haven't even been coming across my feed.
For me, Mike Matheson also.
Hudson's playing like Hudson's amazing. Okay,
why would you trade Mike?
He's playing his best hockey.
Is a unique talent. There's
Yes.
not a lot of defensemen in the world who can do what Lane Hudson can do.
Yeah.
And he's only going to get better. Like, why would anybody think about trading him?
No, but and Stu, I'm with you, right?
And Mike Matheson at next season, he's got one more year left in his contract.
Yeah.
So if you trade him now, who's going to play with Lane Hudson?
It's a fact.
Who's going to play with Lane Hudson?
It's a fact that Lane Hudson is an incredible talent. It's also a fact that he's playing his best hockey this season since he's been paired with Matheson.
Yes.
That's a fact.
And Mike Matheson has another year in his contract. So at this next year, around this time, if David Reinbacher recovers from his injury and looks like he's going to be what they hoped he can be, and if Logan Mailloux looks like he's going to be hope he can be, and these are two right-shot defensemen who might be able to play with Hudson and moving forward. But until then, why would you move Mike Matheson?
No.
And then a year from now, you decide, okay, are we going to trade him, or do we try and re-sign him for another 2 years and keep him here? They're a hell of a pairing. They're great together. Like, it's Mike Matheson. The last couple of games has played outstanding hockey.
Amazing.
Defensive in his own end, killing penalties. The previous game in Vancouver, the last shift on the PK. Like they're really good together. And what a great veteran for Lane Hudson to learn from.
The one that came across my feed was, after it was the game after Patrick Laine against Buffalo, he had the hat trick. And everyone said, oh my God, Patrick Laine is doing this with the Canadiens now. He's back to full form. Does this make Cole Caulfield expendable? What is this with the second one player starts playing amazing? You got to get rid of the other one. Good teams need to have an abundance of good players.
As you were mentioning, all respect to Snake Boisvert, not every number 5 overall draft pick pans out. Not every number 3 overall draft pick pans out, as Canadiens fans know from the past. There's no guarantees with draft picks.
Well, take a look at the Canadiens right now. The 3 best players on the team. Suzuki was drafted 13th, Caulfield was drafted 15th, and Hudson was drafted 62nd.
Yep. That's right. It's not
And
like, we're going to tank because next year we're going to get Joe Blow, 5th overall. No, maybe he's 3 years away from playing in the NHL, and maybe he won't be any good when he gets to the NHL.
And the guy that was drafted first and the guy that was drafted third are not their best players right now.
Yeah, exactly. The draft's a crapshoot.
But the law of averages.
Unless it's a Connor McDavid or a Connor Bedard or Nathan McKinnon as your number 1 pick. But other than that, it's
But the law of averages say that more often than not, in the top 5, you're going to have more guys who end up being better NHLers than guys that are. I get that. It's the law of averages, but
sure.
Well, Quinn Hughes was what, 20?
No, Quinn Hughes was 7.
7, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so
I'm thinking of somebody else who was around 20. Okay.
This is my philosophy on this whole thing now that the Canadiens are in a position to strike for the playoffs. It is such a depressing way to watch hockey, to watch football, to watch basketball by saying, the Canadiens needed it. So I agreed with this mindset of yours, Tony, before, but now I don't agree with it anymore. If you're not going to make the playoffs, or if you're not going to win the Stanley Cup, you might as well finish last. Like that, there's so many things in hockey that only one team can win the Stanley Cup, and only one team can draft first overall. It's such a depressing way to watch hockey and to watch sports as a whole. Just for the fans that are clamoring, oh my God, this playoff run, or this playoff push is ruining the draft pick. Forget the draft pick. Enjoy the hockey. Like you said, Tony, the 3 best players were drafted outside of the top 5, and the 4th best player on the team, I would argue, is Kaiden Guhle, and he was drafted 16th.
Tell that to a season ticket holder paying a ton of money at the Bell Center that I may as well just finish last if you're not going to make the playoffs. A buddy of mine who's a longtime season ticket holder texted me after the Pittsburgh game and said, I don't think I'm going to renew my tickets next season. I can't watch this anymore. It's not worth it. I live in Laval. The drive in, it's not worth it. Now he's like everybody else in the city, right?
Yeah. And Stu, like the Canadiens it's because of the Canadiens that we have a lot of work. About a month ago, there were probably 5,000 people watching the games on television. 1 month later, there's 550,000. There's double.
Yeah.
About a month ago, there were empty seats at the Bell Center.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow night versus the Capitals, there will not be. No. There will not be.
No. And the empty seats at the Bell Center, especially in the lower bowl, are sold tickets to season ticket holders who couldn't resell them or couldn't give them away to people. So that's but you're right. I mean, now, there won't be any the Saturday night, tomorrow night, there won't be any empty seats there.
Guys, I'm going to leave you to close this baby off without me, okay?
All right, Tony, take care, bro.
Tony.
Just wanted to
Have a
drop
good
in and
weekend.
say hello. It was a pretty long hello. Hello to everyone, and thanks for being there as always. Appreciate it. Ciao.
Tony, thanks for joining us. Stu, thank you. And Stu, I'll just take it on this last thing.
Yep.
I'll take it one step further. There's going to be no empty seats in the Bell Center. There's going to be a playoff atmosphere in the Bell Center.
There will be. I mean, there was the last game.
Sure. But this Saturday night,
Yeah.
the Canadiens are playing their best hockey that they've played in 3 years. People, it's like I said, after Monday night, oh my God, I can't believe I have to wait till Friday night to watch the Canadiens again.
Yeah.
Saturday night in the Bell Center, they're playing their best hockey that they've ever played in the past 3 years. This is going to be an unbelievable atmosphere that I really hope that the Canadiens, they're not too tired, playing on tired legs.
It's going to be a tough game for them, but I think in a lot of ways they might feed off the crowd tomorrow night because they're on a roll, and you say fans, it's going to be a playoff atmosphere for sure.
And you know what? How many people thought after they beat Florida, oh, okay, they could lose to Tampa. They beat Florida. It's that was a big game. Now they're gonna have their lunch fed to them. No, this team doesn't roll over.
Well, how many people thought when they went down 2-0 in the first period in Vegas that they were going to get blown out? I did. And Kent Hughes said in his news conference, that's when he looked at Jeff Gordon in their box and he said, now we're going to find out what this team is made out of.
And how about
they did?
How about against Vancouver when they went down 3-1?
Mm-hmm.
How about tonight when they went down 1-0?
Yep.
This team, there's something about it, like Tony said.
Something special.
Anyways, Stu, you enjoy the atmosphere tomorrow night because you're gonna have the best. You're gonna have the best view in the building tomorrow night.
I don't know if the eighth floor press box is the best view, but it's a pretty good view.
There you go, Stu. Any view in the Bell Center is a good view. Right. Stu, enjoy the hockey tomorrow night and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
That was Stu Cowan. That was Tony Marinaro. For producer Shane, I'm Matt Ohayon. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaVita.tv. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.